lot of people are really hesitant to charge for their stuff. And they have all kinds of hang-ups about it, like, well, it's too much money, and I'm not worthy, or like people are poor, or like whatever stories they have, or I can't charge for that. Like all kinds of hang-ups about charging for stuff. When the reality is that when you do charge for stuff, people get a lot more value and things just work a lot better. They are more engaged, they care more, they show up more, right? And really they get more value, and it's funner for you too, because you get paid kind of what you're worth, and so you have more energy to put into it. It makes more sense, more fun for you to actually put energy into creating this thing, or into delivering value to people. And so a strategy that you can use is start at the high end. And if you're doing coaching offer of some sort, add like an ultra high ticket offer. Maybe it's like, you fly them to you in a private jet, and, they spend a week living with you, or you fly to them and live with them for a week, and you just go over every single thing in their lives and yada, yada, whatever it is. And that costs like $150,000, right? Like a lot of money. And then you're like, but that actually is not available right now, but you can get this other thing that's like 80% of it, and that one is available. And so when you do that, all of a sudden you've anchored people at $150,000, and maybe that other package that's just $50,000 and gives you like 80% of it, right? Then all of a sudden that $50,000 sounds really cheap. So that's a way that you can kind of anchor both your clients and yourself at something way higher. Like it's something that you could do and you might do at some point, but maybe not right now. And so it's not available, or you can only have one or two clients of that or whatever, but it's totally fine that it's actually not available, but it kind of anchors you both. Because I think when it comes to monetary stuff, it's your mindset as well as your client's mindset, but yours first, of getting accustomed to charging more. And think about it, right? A lot of us aren't used to people making like lots of money, but there are people with lots of money to spare. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday, February 23rd, for another edition of Unfiltered Live. This time live from Copenhagen, where I've been spending the week going to visit my ailing dad who had a health scare. So he wanted me to come by, and I, of course, wanted just as much to stop by and check in on him. So he's doing well, thankfully. Yeah. So we did a Simplero meetup here in Copenhagen yesterday, and it was like 15 people or so showed up. It was quite fun. One of the cool things is how much people love meeting each other, right, on Simplero. So it wasn't, I was in town, so I organized it, obviously, but it's not about me. It's really about connecting people who are all sharing that passion for online business, for Simplero, and really like for supporting each other. There's like a great vibe of people who are like, happy to help out other Simplero people, other Simplero fans, other online business people. So that is quite cool to see. So it was a great experience. Again, as always, I'm happy to take your questions. That was the intention of the show. It's kind of transformed into Calvin talks for an hour about shit, which is cool too. But really, I love nothing more than to take your questions and have a conversation with you. So it's really funny too, because this show, like, I'm here to provide as much value as I possibly can, and we don't get a ton of questions. And then we also have our Simplero Academy, where people are paying thousands of dollars to be part of that group. And in there, I go on to do a hot seat, which is essentially roughly the same thing of like, hey, bring me your stuff and we'll discuss it. And in there, we get tons of engagement. So it's really interesting to see that I'm here willing to provide the same resource, but people don't do it. But once they pay thousands of dollars, you better ask, they're going to show up and take advantage of it. So there's a good lesson there for you in terms of, making sure that you charge for what you offer. It was a conversation that we had yesterday as well at the meetup. A lot of people are really hesitant to charge for their stuff. and they have all kinds of hang-ups about it, like, well, it's too much money, and I'm not worthy, and or like people are poor, or like whatever stories they have, or I can't charge for that, I can't charge, like all kinds of hang-ups about charging for stuff. When the reality is that when you do charge for stuff, people get a lot more value and things just work a lot better. They are more engaged, they care more, they show up more, right? And really they get more value, and it's funner for you too, because you get paid kind of what you're worth, and so you have more energy to put into it, right? It makes more sense, more fun for you to actually put energy into creating this thing, or into delivering value to people. Yeah, so that's a great lesson. There was one there who charged like $20 for this like mindset course, and it was just like a ridiculous price, in that none of her ideal target market would ever take something like that seriously at that price point. It's just too cheap. Now it's interesting too, because if it was a book, then $25 it seems fairly appropriate. But if it's an info product, it's a course, something like that, then $25 is way too cheap, right? And so a lot of people who might be ideal customers and get a lot of value would never buy it. And so she thinks she's doing a good thing by lowering the price that much, but in reality, she's not. She's just making sure that people don't get value from it, and a lot of people are not going to buy it, and so then they're definitely not going to get value from it. And so we were discussing a strategy that you can use is start at the high end. And if you're doing coaching offer of some sort, like add like an ultra high ticket offer. Maybe it's like, you fly them to you in a private jet, and they spend a week living with you, and you just like go over or you fly to them and live with them for a week, and you just go over every single thing in their lives, and yada yada, whatever it is. And that costs like $150,000, right? Like a lot of money. And then you're like, but that actually is not available right now. But this other thing is just $50,000 and gives you like 80% of it, right? Then all of a sudden that $50,000 sounds really cheap. So that's a way that you can kind of anchor both your clients and yourself at something way higher. Like it's something that you could do and you might do at some point, but maybe not right now. And so it's not available, or you can only have one or two clients of that or whatever. But it's totally fine that it's actually not available, but it kind of anchors you both, because I think it's your mindset as well as your client's mindset, but yours first, of getting accustomed to charging more. A lot of us, aren't used to people making like lots of money, but there are people with lots of money to spare. Like I saw the other day, a round trip private charter flight from the US to Europe and back is going to set you back, $250,000, right? And there are people who will gladly pay that for a trip to Europe, right? They'll gladly pay $250,000 to fly themselves and their families or their friends or whoever it is to Europe and have a vacation, maybe just like a long weekend or something, and then fly back. It's like, sure, why not? It's not a big deal to them. That exists out there, especially these days, right? A lot of people are really struggling financially, but there's a whole other layer that's like doing the opposite, right? Whenever there are these upheavals in the economy, like there are now, and with COVID, and like COVID was the biggest transference of wealth in human history, right? More money was transferred from lower middle class poor people to super rich people than ever before in history during any economic upheaval, whether it's 2008 or COVID or what's happening right now. There's fortunes being made. There are people making bank. There's always going to be very, very wealthy people, and even like somewhat wealthy people. And so if you choose to cater to them, then you're going to make a lot more money than if you choose to try to go after people who are poor, right? And so if you don't want to be poor, the best thing that you can do for poor people is to not be one of them. And so if you don't want to be poor, you got to go where the money is, right? If you want to make money, you got to figure out who has the money and figure out how you get paid by them. That is the game. And we also discussed, someone was having a hang up about doing a course. They wanted to take a live workshop where they would do interaction with people in the group and teach them stuff live on the spot, and then turn that into a course. And then I was like, why don't you don't just record the people, the participants there at one of your workshops, and ask them for permission, obviously, to record them, and that becomes the course that people can then buy. And then you say, hey, with your permission, I'll record you now. And then she was like, well, then I'd have to like charge less. And I'm like, well, no, because then you're just saying, hey, and as a bonus, you will actually get access to this course when it's done. So you can go back and rewatch the recordings and learn this over again. And you don't have to charge less. Like you kind of could charge more for that feature, right? And plus, like, you're going to be in the course. Like, some people are going to find that exciting. Some people are obviously going to be a little shy about it, and that's fine. But some people will find it exciting. And so you can definitely charge more. So again, the big thing about not having hangups, I wouldn't say not having hangups about money, but get over your hangups about money. We all have them. And the sooner you get over them, the better. So that kind of leads me to my next topic that I've been thinking about, which is, like, we all know that the neural pathways in our brains are real, right? We have habitual thoughts and habitual feelings, and you kind of go over them again and again and again. I live in New York City. I live in the States, and I'm from Denmark. And so I come back home here to Denmark every once in a while. And it's like, it's two separate worlds. It's something that Bryson and I were talking about a couple months back, and Beth as well, of like navigating these different cultural codes. What do we call it? Code switching, right? And so there's like a different way of being here. There's a rut that people are in here. There's a rut that people are in America. And being able to like switch between the two, I think, is extremely powerful, right? Like it's one way to kind of keep your brain more neuroplastic and just be able to adapt. But when you don't do that, if you don't do that code switching, then you're going to just get more and more in a rut. And when you end up, when you're 87 years old, like my dad, right? Like you've really dug those fucking neural pathways at that point, unless you make a point of staying nimble in that way. That's something that I really love doing. For me, it's like it's thoughts, it's feelings, it's the body, it's the whole mind body thing, right? Again, it's like those neural pathways are actual like physical configurations in your brain. And so it's like the whole thing is not just your mind, but it's our entire kind of being. And so one of my favorite techniques, as I mentioned before, is body SDS, the body therapy system. I had like 4-hour session today, which was like super intense. Those things tend to be like very deep. One of the things that I've connected really with on this trip is like getting in touch with that part of me that grew up feeling like a victim in all kinds of areas, like being bullied in school and at home and whatnot. And kind of underneath that victim persona, and the victim, something that we pretty much all have that part of us. And it's a self-protection mechanism, right? It's a way to protect ourselves from hurt by insisting on our helplessness, insisting on like, oh, I can't, it's hard, I can't figure it out, it's impossible, I have these problems, it's not my fault, or I can't solve it, or whatever. It's like, as long as we're there, we're not moving in that way, we're safe. So there's protection in that way. But underneath that victim is something, right? Usually some pain, some wound or something. So what I found was this young boy, just the sweetest little boy, that just wanted to be loved, that just wanted to be seen, loved, nurtured, and it wasn't happening. It's like, I think inside all of us is kind of just that, right? Like this child that just wants to be seen and to be loved. And usually most of us probably weren't seen or loved at least not consistently, in super healthy ways or in the way that we really want it or need it. And so we've built up these defense mechanisms around that. And these things come out in business as well, right? We make decisions to try to fill needs that can never be filled through business or through relationships or other means that really only ourselves can fill. It's like it just shifted my perspective on myself and what I've been trying to do for the past couple of years. And I was like, it's a kind of like, it's a feeling like it's settling in more in a way. I think I'll have to share more when it's a little more settled. Doing this type of work of like digging underneath our patterns, that's where you can kind of dislodge those neural pathways so that you can start blasting some new pathways in your brain. And ultimately what that gives you is freedom to choose how you want to show up and what you want to do in life and where you want to go. Cases, I think, our little teach cells are the wise teachers. Oh, are they? Yeah, for sure. My talk actually in Dallas is all about feelings for entrepreneurs, right? Like learning to feel our feelings, because that's where those breakthroughs happen, is when we really connect with those deep feelings. For me, I have this photo. So I asked my parents, my mom a while back, for like to just send me all of the photos that she has of me as a kid, so that I could kind of just look at them and reconnect with that boy. Because I felt super wrong for a long time. I wanted to get the fuck away from that guy as fast as possible, right? Because I felt so bad, and I was like, let me, like, if I get, really good at shit and like really successful and really like whatever, like something, then I'm not that guy, because he sucked, he was bullied, and he was an idiot or whatever. And kind of trying to get away from that. And there was something that I realized a while ago. It was like, yeah, that's not the path, right? You want to actually connect with that person that you were, and love him or her. And definitely been a journey to learn to do that. But I have this particular photo that I kept returning to, of me like with my dad, and my dad is lying in a sofa, and then I'm kind of lying on top of him, and it's such a cute picture. And whenever I pictured that in my mind, I was just like, just completely melted with love for that little boy. So kind of fun. So if you don't have photos of yourself from, I keep them in an album in my photo library on my phone, and like I can go and look at those from time to time. I highly recommend doing that. It's definitely a very cool thing to have, and just like on a regular basis go back and look at that person again, and just seeing what a delight you were as a kid, and just reconnecting with that. I think that's a super powerful thing.
Do you equate victimhood and that persona with our inability to charge higher prices and to kind of take those leaps? Or is that something different?
No, I mean, definitely. So if you look at victim is very much, it can play out as all the ways that we sabotage ourselves, right? All the ways that we play small, that we do stuff that isn't effective, that doesn't get us what we actually want. Because like what the victim wants is to be proven right that it really is a victim, and that its problems are unsolvable. And so it'll be like it'll put out a campaign, it'll do a campaign for a course, and then it'll price it so cheap that even if it sells 10 copies, it doesn't amount to much. And also it doesn't sell that much because it's not attractive to the right audience, thus proving that, look, nobody wants my stuff, and I can't make money doing this, and like, look, I was right, that this is impossible and hard, and I'm not worthy of it, or like all that stuff, right? And then you can kind of loop. So that will be a pattern that your victim does, is it does shit that doesn't work.
Powerful. And with that even being said, how do you, like, what's your process like when you see breakthrough? Like when you go through that next level, like, is you're exercising with the body SDS, and it's like, okay, I go to Denmark, and then it's New Calvin, and then it's like a whole new paradigm, new perspective? Or like, like, what does that look like in real life, in real time for you, when you're going from one level to the next, peeling back one layer from victim to more of a creator?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we've been working together for a while. What have you noticed?
Well, ironically, I do notice when you have those deep sessions, you physically, you get like a cold or something. I remember telling you about that, and I was like, when we were on the phone, I was like, "Oh, Calvin's been doing SDS because I can hear
Yeah.
it."
Yeah. Dude, I mean, I was crying nonstop for probably at least 90 minutes. That's gonna like get you a little bit stuffed up, right? So yeah, I might have a cold coming on. I can't quite tell yet.
But I know it impacts you though, from a physical perspective, beyond just the. 'Cause I think you told me one time it's all the feelings and everything, like the cleansing that you're
Totally.
experiencing when you do that.
Totally. I mean that, yeah, that's it, right? It's like all of those, like I'm crying because I don't, not about anything. I'm just like releasing shit, right? Releasing stuff that comes up.
It's big. I definitely see your intentionality in terms of how, if I were to say this is how Calvin goes to breakthrough, or how
Hmm.
he, actualizes his new level.
Hmm.
I definitely see intentionality. I see a level of obsession, and I guess it's the same as intentionality, but with like, this is the objective and the goal. I think you
Yeah.
put 100% of your effort towards it.
I mean, so this trip wasn't planned, right? It was like my dad had this um health situation scare, and he seems to be fine, but then I was like, you know, what can I do for you, Dad? And he's like, well, I'd love to see you if you come over. I'm like, all right, sure, let me do it. So it was like planned with like 4 days notice or something to fly over here. So it wasn't planned. But then once I know I'm going to Copenhagen, I'm gonna book some damn body SDS, right? Um, and so for me, what had come up recently, which I shared a couple of weeks ago, was about like really seeing my victim in a much more clearly than I ever have. And so that was like one of the top things on my list that I came with. Like, all right, this, I just had this breakthrough on my own. Let's go in and work on that through the body and just really support that process, right? So that you get to go deeper on that process. For me, what's fascinating about it is that feeling like you come out the other side and something's just shifted, right? You're a changed, you're a different person. You're more free to be who you are, more free to go a different path than you have been in the past. The change happens, and then it's not like learning a new skill or a new process or a new technique or anything like that, right? It's like the change happens, and then you are a different person, and then you just go out and show up that way as that new person, and that new person is going to get different results because he's going to do different things.
That seems scary though. I mean, just how do you embrace this newness? And it's like, it's new. Like you've never walked this way before. You've never made these kind of decisions before. Like, how do you process that in your mind?
It's funny you say that's scary because to me it's not, right? It's anything but scary. But I mean, it's not necessarily smooth, but it's not scary. I will say, like, one of the things is like once you have those breakthroughs and then you look back at, holy crap, like I've been doing this insane thing for years or for a long time, right? I'm like, God damn it, how stupid I've been. Like I had some of that last night where I was just like, oh my God. Like I could kind of see it's like, so I started like really attached to the computer, right? Like I got really good at computers because people were scary. And so when I started to shift that, which isn't, it was only like 4 years ago that I started to actually get away from the computer and go out, and I had started to have a teamwork on the code and go to masterminds and groups and travel and stuff. I didn't used to do that at all. And that was the way that I grew up. And then like the world starts opening up, and especially a year ago was like a big breakthrough also here in Copenhagen that really kind of unlocked that. And then I can see now that I've gone somewhat overboard there and neglected some of the on the ground work that I need to do. And but it's kind of like a pendulum, from because like back in last summer I was like really on the ground, and then I kind of went out and like you know traveled a bunch and did a bunch of things, and then kind of a little bit back and then out. Now I've just definitely been sort of on the like crazy travel schedule and stuff like that. And now I can see, holy crap, like that, like I really need to spend more time just on the ground with the team, making shit happen so that, things really happen and really work. And it's like, God damn it. Like I feel so stupid. And then I also don't, right? Because I know that it doesn't help. But what I'm talking about is that process when you realize, oh my God, I've been doing this thing and it's like absolutely like crazy. And then you're like, all right, but that's the thing, right? That's the benefit or like every time you do, the alternative is to not see how you like not change your mind, if you will, right? And then just like keep going down the wrong path. But at some point, if you want to learn, you're going to be like, okay, great. Like I realized that was the wrong path and I need to switch to this path. And that's painful until you realize, well, that's just the price that you pay for getting wiser. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Tiger has a question. Let's hear it. What
Hey,
you got?
buddy.
Hey, man. Good to see you.
You too. So I'm wondering, this is more so for a friend of mine that recently signed up with Simpluro, and I'm going to have him watch the recording. But I'm wondering if there's anything you can say to help this person realize the reality of her value and that it's okay asking for a lot of money. Because the situation is she's extraordinary when it comes to helping adults and parents understand the sensitivity of children and the appropriateness of how they behave to kind of create a space for a more authentic connection. And she's been working in this field for so many years, like in public service and whatnot.
Right.
And she's doing a phenomenal job with growing an audience. And I'm kind of a little bit jealous with how fast it's going for her, with people who are just loving her content. And but she has this concern that most of the people that she's connecting with, sure, maybe don't have a lot of money, but there's such an opportunity for her to, do high ticket coaching, but there's that barrier, right? That next leap. And so I'm wondering if there's anything you can say to help her kind of make that switch.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things. So first of all, like she solves a very important problem for people. And I think like you used the phrase, most of the people on like her audience probably doesn't have a lot of money. Well, having like the amount of money that someone quote unquote has is very fungible, right? It's not a fixed number. It's if they really want it, they usually can find the money, right? Like if it's something that they really want, like big ass flat screen TV or something, they're gonna find the money. So it's like, but it's kind of like we make ourselves the judge of what they should be spending their money on, and like we kind of empathize and put ourselves in their shoes. And I think it's doing a disservice to them. I think it's much better that they spend that money or more on what your friend is offering so that they can solve this challenge with their kids, right? This is a very, very, very important thing to work through. And if they have to put it on credit cards to do whatever they have to do, that's fine. Let them do that, because that is only going to make them so much more invested in getting the outcome and getting there. And they will figure it out. It's like, or they won't, right? But that's up to them. Like Pampa program, again, are having lots of success selling $6,000 coaching programs to regular people in bad health, right? Because, well, when you're in bad health, you need freaking help. But the medical establishment sure ain't gonna do much good for them, and that's pretty costly as well. So yeah, I just say, stop trying to make that decision for your clients, right? Let them make the call for themselves and be max persuasive about the value of what you offer. There's a really great 3-hour video on YouTube. Let me see. It's Dan Kennedy, Wealth Attraction or something. It's like a 3-hour long seminar that he's done where he talks a lot about all of these kinds of issues and tackles that in a myriad ways, and it's really good stuff. All right, Kate. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey.
Hey. So this is my first time here, so thanks for
welcome
making
to
this happen.
Yeah.
I was really interested in how you were talking about victimization and how our victim selves want to make us right, like prove ourselves right. And what I found is that my victim self is so afraid of being right that it's really hard to get past that to put stuff out in the world. So I wanted just to say that my experience is more of like this crazy barrier rather than something that's motivating me to try and fail. Instead, it's keeping me from trying in the first place.
Sure.
But I had a question for you about pricing, because this is something I've come up now against a couple times in the past couple weeks, where it felt like a cluster of shitty little situations where I would put something out into the world and people would immediately translate that into an hourly fee and say, what could you possibly be doing that would be worth $1,000 an hour? Or what would you possibly be able to do that's like worth such and such, dollars an hour? And just wondering how you approach that sort of mentally, philosophically, and also when someone immediately translates a program or a offering into, dollars per hour. So
right. One question I have is how are you or let me put it this way. One thing that you can do is like construct the offer in a way so it's not as easily translatable into an hourly rate, right? So there's kind of more components and you can't easily put a number on it. But the other piece is
that's
what's that?
That's where I fucked up.
yeah, right.
I see it.
Right. And the other thing is like really focus on the outcome, right? Like honestly, if you can get them that result in less time, it's worth more money, right? Because it's about the result. So if you're clear on what the outcome and the result is, then you just return to that and you say yes. You know what? $1,000 an hour. That sounds about right. I should be charging 5 times that. But because I'm able to deliver this result for you in very little time, and that's because I have worked for 20, 25 years honing this skill. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for that hour. You're paying for those 25 years where I've been building this skill. And I'm here to deliver the result. And you want the result faster or slower? Which would you prefer?
All right, that was super helpful. Thank you very much. I'm all about doing short intensives because that's really where my niche is. That's where I do my best work. And I also believe that people don't always have time to do 6-week, 6-month programs in order to address issues. And so, so thanks. I really appreciate that.
We're delivering certainty and speed, right? Certainty of getting the outcome they want and getting it faster. That's where a lot of the value is. So yeah, absolutely. Bryson, what were we talking about? We were talking about the summit, or
yeah,
what do we
we're
have?
definitely talking about some of your takeaways from the wonderful summit we had last week that you said your first ever.
Any of you guys here were you at the summit last week? What did you guys think? Let me hear in the chat. I want to hear, or jump on here if you want. What was your takeaway? I was there the whole time. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I was there the whole time. I don't necessarily expect that y'all were. What up, Anne?
Well, I was shocked. I was there the whole time. I've
You
never
were?
done. Yes, it was so good. Like I kind of thought, and trust me, if things get too heady or strategic, it's like, I'll run the other way. I'm not kidding, because it's just not in what lights my fire, even though I know some of those components are important. And I was shocked. Like I thought, okay, I'm going to get in and just see how it goes. I never jumped off for 2 days. I was shocked at myself. It's the first summit I've done. Like, and I'm a big Simplero fan. I'm a big fan of the Academy too. And so I love that, the whole ecosystem that you had. And I still did not think I would be doing the summit. I mean, it wasn't like I showed up to just like be a super fan, even though I am. I mean, I was literally shocked at how I just could not stop listening to it. I couldn't stop participating and being in it. So yeah.
That is so cool. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was quite surprised myself. I've never done a summit before. I don't think I've ever actually watched a whole summit ever before. So this is my first summit. I don't think I've ever really watched the summit before, actually. Maybe I've like caught a replay or something of something that was like,
Yes.
but yeah. Yeah.
That was
it's cool.
shocking to me. That was,
Yeah.
I mean, I was really surprised how I got taken by the
Mhm.
ride of it. Was really good.
Yeah. It really helped to have a DJ, right?
Yeah, that was wonderful. Yeah, the
Yeah.
whole thing, the whole team, the whole setup, the whole way it went was fantastic. And it was
Yeah.
really worthy.
It's funny. So one of the things that I learned from the summit experience was it doesn't take that much to raise the bar.
Mhm.
Meaning, so we actually had we hired Leanne, who's a member, Simplera member also, and has done summits for years and years. We hired her to organize the summit for us. I think it was Julie from her team who was on as well during the summit, and she's done, I think she said, hundreds of summits over the past 2 years. She came back morning of the second day before we went live and said, like, guys, this is the best summit I've ever been to.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, we're on, which was really cool. And some of the things were like, the speakers were great. But some of the things, like, she's never had had a DJ at a summit before. Shami's just like a phenomenal guy. He's just so cool. And so I snatched him from Dan Martell, right? Dan Martell, who's my mentor, he has Shami, both of his online events and his in-person events. And I've, gotten to know Shami from there. And so I just reached out to him and said, hey, would you DJ at our event? And he was like, sure, of course. And so that was really cool. And then another thing that Julie mentioned was how I would stop speakers when they said something profound and then like repeat it and get people to share that, or like, write it down and like really make sure people got that. And she was like, that was really, really brilliant. And then at the end of it, before the speaker left, I would say, hey, I want everybody to give a gift to the speaker and like summarize, like, what are the key takeaways that you had, and then read them aloud and have the speaker get them. She was like, she's never seen that before. All of those things I just stole from Dan Martell. Dan does that. Dan does, he will interrupt speakers and be like, hey, like, I just want to make sure everybody really heard what you got. And like, that was really big. And the key takeaways, he always does that. Right. So it's just like, you just, pick up what other people are doing that's cool, and then you steal it, and then you implement it, and it's great. Yeah.
I think part of what made it so magical to just kind of get on that Simplero Summit ride and just like, I just didn't get off. It really seriously shocked me. I even had a road trip and I was listening to it the entire time, on that Friday. Is the authenticity. None of it felt performative. Like even the people you've brought on, that's what I think there's a disconnect. Like it literally felt like we were all in a real summit, and the authenticity of what you had brought and what was being delivered. And then even the people, none of it felt performative.
Yeah.
And that just had a magic to it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, it was super fun. It was super fun to do it. I was also scared because I'm not like, that kind of interviewer role is not my favorite. And it's something that when I've done podcasts, it's something that I've had to work on, of like, figure out how to be a good kind of host, interviewer kind of role. But yeah, I feel like I was able to kind of get into it, find a way to do it that felt authentic to me, and have conversation with people that like were, I would take up enough space to be in and be engaged, but not, obviously overpower our guests. I think the lesson there is just the process of, you take something and then then you copy it, or like that process of like, it's going to be awkward at first, but then you figure out how to make it yours. It's funny because I'm going through it now with speaking, where, I mean, I go on here every week and I basically like speak for an hour, right? Like I can easily speak on topics that I'm passionate about. But then for some reason, I had it in my head that when it comes to like being on stage and speaking and giving a talk and a presentation, it kind of has to be more structured, or maybe you need to use slides and have like bullet points and shit. And I'm like, I've always known that's not my style. I'm never going to talk that way. And it's not going to be my way of speaking. But for some reason, I thought that, well, maybe I need a signature talk that's like really well rehearsed and kind of basically practiced and all. Like, it would never freaking work for me, right? I would be so bored giving it that the audience would be super bored listening to it. And at the summit the first night, I kind of tried to do a presentation a little bit that style, and I felt like it wasn't really flowing for me. But then on Friday, I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna like talk about this stuff in the way that I I talk about stuff that I care about and share it that way. And I felt like that worked a lot better. So it's that, we need to make it our own and figure out how we can be authentic in it, and that's where the magic lies. And it was funny too, because my talk on Friday was about simplicity, and specifically about working backwards from the outcome. And then I've been figuring out what's the next customer acquisition funnel that we want to do for Simplero, and I kind of mapped out what I wanted to look like, and then I shared it with someone. That would have been, I think it was like Saturday. Yeah, I shared it with someone who's like a very senior, experienced marketer, and he was like, yeah, that seems way complicated. I would make it way simpler. And then it was basically like, oh shit, I should have listened to the talk I gave yesterday, because I would have gotten some great insights from that one. Yeah, so it was like a smack on the head. But that's how it works. We teach what we need to learn, right? Simplicity is my medicine, because I do have a tendency to complicate shit, and then I have to really like figure out how to make it simpler, so it works.
I just want to say too, if anybody wants to register to check out the replays, we are showing the replays this weekend. So the link is in the chat, or you can just go to, if you're watching and not available to view the chat, simplerosummit.com. It's totally free. You can see what swept away in for 2 days.
It was fun. We're definitely going to do something again. I think, like I mentioned on the summit as well, I think I would do shorter summits, like not a full 2-day event, but maybe just like a half day, or like 3 speakers or something like that. I could definitely see us doing that again. I mean, we might do a full 2-day thing as well at some point, but it's definitely, it is a lot to put together and execute. It took what, 5 months or something to orchestrate it all and get it ready. So it's a lot. Let's do this in the chat. Biggest takeaway from today: stop making decisions for your clients. That's a good one. Doesn't take that much to raise the bar. Yeah. Victim wants to be proven right. Yeah, it's funny that like making decisions for other people, right? Like I've been struck on this trip by just when I overhear people's conversations and what they talk about, what they care about, etc. Like, especially in this world of like Chat GPT and AI and all that stuff, like humans are funny. Humans are really interesting. Like we a lot of times people care about some really lame shit, right? They're just obsessed with like really silly, stupid things, and like no judgment. Like we're all that. But then this is just how humans function, right? Like we're not logical beings, we're emotional beings. And so we have all these emotional needs, and we try to make up ways and stories about why we have these emotional needs, and explanations that sound plausible but might not be true. And then we try to figure out how we can get them met, etc. It's like, that's humans. That's who we are, and it's amazing, and it's lovable, and it's beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. And that just means that like the people you sell to are the same, right? They have all kinds of weird ideas in their heads, and desires and wants, and like rules about how they can get it or can't get it, and what's okay and what's not okay, and this is too much or this is too little, blah 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 blah. All that shit is in there, and that's the world that we operate in. Like that's your market, that's who you're marketing to. And so you just have to get in there to kind of figure out how you can pitch what you're offering so it fits with their messed up worldview, so that they buy the thing, so that they actually can get the benefit that you can help them with, because presumably they want that, or at least they think they do. And that's what it is. That's what business really is. Like, who needs, you know, a pumpkin spice latte? Nobody fucking does, right? It's like, it's all just like, oh, well, that the smell and the flavor reminds me of childhood, and then I drink this and I feel really nice and warm and fuzzy inside. It's like, it's always about something else than what it really is. And that's just, yeah, that's just the world that we operating in. And then you have like AI, which is like replicating this like very, very limited part of human intelligence, if you will, quote unquote, and is also like really messed up in many ways. But I just, like, humans are so much more than that, and so much more interesting than that. And yeah, love them and sell them some shit that is gonna help them get what they want. That's the game. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Next week we're gonna have a guest, so we're gonna start to bring on more guests for the show. Next week is a guy named Jim Carter, really cool dude. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to him. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Will be fun. Bye, you guys.